I can't see at this moment from a vehicle in the street how a power surge could affect it as you describe.
So it was an incident which clearly happened above ground?
It was definitely above ground. It was on the street that I'm on now, Upper Woburn Place, which is just near Russell Square.
And what have you seen in terms of injuries then, Bob? If there was an explosion on a bus, one presumes that bus was packed?
Yes, all buses are packed because of what's happening on the tubes. There are thousands of people in the streets trying to get to work, to walk distances and ways that they probably know little about, and the streets were packed. And there's a man now saying all the wounded have got to go to a hotel up the road, and there's a gentleman walking past me now who's got blood coming out of his eye, going up there now. I will go and try and find out more, but at the moment the whole area is blocked off by the police. So we have at one end of the street the police blocking off entrances to Euston Station, putting thousands of people onto the street, and within 300 yards we now have the entire street blocked off because of an explosion. So far we don't know why, but I'm suggesting it was a bomb.
And Bob, just talk about the police response there. How strong has that response been?
Well, it has been very quick and very rapid, but I have to say that they were already well on the streets, 100 of police, making sure that people were getting out of the tube, which is only 300 or 400 yards down the road, Euston Station. So they were out in force anyway, so they were there very, very quickly, along with an ambulance, which I've just seen gone past now.
Bob, we'll leave you to try and get some more information there from the scene. For now, thank you.
You're watching Sky News with a major incident on the London Underground. It is coming up to 10 o'clock in the morning. We are staying with our pictures from our Sky helicopter. We heard at about 9:20 this morning that there apparently been some form of explosion at Liverpool Street. It's been reported from those in charge of the train authorities that there has been a power surge, but several explosions have been reported. We can cross live now to Liverpool Street and speak to our correspondent on the ground there, Lisa Holland. Lisa, give us an update.
Morning to you. It's pretty chaotic on the ground here at the moment. There are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people being evacuated from buildings in the surrounding area by Liverpool Street Station. A cordon's gone up around Liverpool Street, which, talking to one police officer on the ground here, he says that it stretches for about a quarter of a mile. Now, everybody within that cordon, in the shops, the offices close to Liverpool Street Station, are being urged to come out of their buildings to go beyond this cordon. So the pathways, the streets are absolutely packed with people now. I have to tell you, this is an unofficial line. This is from one of the police officers that I've been talking to on the ground here. He says that he has been told that the incident that he is dealing with at Liverpool Station involves multiple casualties. The problem he says they have at the moment, which is why they've thrown the security cordon up, which is why they're evacuating everybody from the surrounding area, is that they really don't seem to know exactly what they're dealing with. Just talking to him, he says, look, we're trained to deal with every eventuality, be it nuclear, chemical, biological. He's not at all suggesting that it could be any of those things at the moment. He says he simply doesn't know. That's the problem. That's why they're having to evacuate everybody from this area at the moment. So people here bewildered, unsure of what's going on, hearing reports of what's going on, but really nobody knows at the moment.
OK, Lisa, thank you very much for that. And as we've been listening to you, some more information coming in. The National Grid, which supplies power to the Underground, has said there had been no problems with its system this morning, which could have contributed to the incident. We are clearly not even into an hour yet of this major incident, which has shut down the whole of the London Underground. Clearly, the emergency services engrossed in dealing with what they're finding on the ground. Some grim news indeed from Russell Square from one of our colleagues who was witnessing what had happened there. Apparently a large explosion which people there had assessed could have been a bomb. Our Sky News helicopter has been held back from Russell Square. We will keep you informed with any more details from Russell Square. Alongside me, my colleague Chris Roberts.
So, what's caused this? Well, the initial estimate was power surge incidents. That came to us from British Transport Police. Let's have a word with Richard Hope. He's a rail expert. Richard, power surge incidents, but the National Grid says it has no evidence of that. Any ideas?
I'm really completely baffled by this one. There are all kinds of protected devices to prevent higher voltages getting through to the third and fourth rails which supply the power to the train. They're supposed to operate at 660 volts. To cause this kind of damage that we're talking about here, I would assess that the voltage on the power being supplied to the rails, the voltage would have to go up to some thousands of volts, breaking down the insulation on the trains and causing arcing and fires and explosions of this kind. But I have never heard of any sort of multiple incident of this kind, and I can't at the moment figure out how it could happen, but clearly it has happened.
Any concerns over recent weeks, months, years that something like this was a possibility?
No. I in the whole history of electric railways and underground systems, I can't recall an incident of this kind where we had explosions in such a widespread power surge. I mean, we're talking about each sort of short section of line, maybe half a mile in the central area. It's broken up into sections, and they're supplied by with power from substations down in the underground system. Now, if one of those went wrong and a couple of trains were affected, say in the area of Russell Square, between Russell Square and King's Cross, well, yes, I could imagine that, but how one could at the same time have such an incident as far away as Edgware Road, I just don't understand at the moment.
I mean, given, though, I know you say that safety measures are in place to ensure that something like this can't happen, given the amount of electricity that's surging through those lines, if something did go catastrophically wrong, as it appears to have, it could cause explosions.
Oh, yes, it can. I mean, there is a lot of power there, and quite a few of the major accidents on underground systems around the world have been caused in this way. There was one causing many dozens of casualties in Paris in 1903 in the early days, and a very bad fire. There was one in Baku in Azerbaijan. I don't know, we ever heard exactly how many were killed there. That was 200 or 300 people. But that was something that was on the train. That was a breakdown of the train, a major short circuit, major arcing, setting fire to the train. It was essentially, if I could put it that way, a local thing. To have such incidents occurring simultaneously across a large network like London Underground is, as I say, it's unprecedented. I don't have any hesitation in saying that.
I'm reading between the lines of what you're saying. Is your gut feeling that this is something far more sinister than an electricity power surge?
I wouldn't. It doesn't sound sinister to me. I mean, obviously one can't rule it out, but I don't know how. If I was a terrorist and sort of trying to do something, I don't know how I would even begin to set about doing this. Maybe somebody's come up with some plan, but I can't envisage it, and it's not usually the way they work. They plant bombs in suitcases and leave it on an underground train. That's dead easy. But how one would actually, I find it very hard to believe that this has anything to do with terrorism at the moment, but I could be proved wrong.
Richard Hope, rail expert, thanks for your time. Perhaps we can talk again a little bit later when the picture gets a bit clearer.
Just some news on the wires. Scotland Yard have said that they are assisting with what has been termed a major incident. They've confirmed, as we know already, of course, that there have been casualties. Officers were called out to Aldgate Station, which you can see at the moment, at 10 to 9 this morning to assist the police on the scene there. All of the emergency services are on the scene, and this has been declared a major incident, according to a spokesman. We can speak now to our crime correspondent, Martin Brunt, who joins us on the line. Martin, what do you have for us?
Well, as I think your other guests have been saying, the situation's very unclear, but certainly police have reacted to reports of 5 explosions at least at various tube stations around central London, King's Cross, Edgware Road, Aldgate, Russell Square and Liverpool Street. And I know that there have been some serious casualties. As you've said already, it's a major incident. Anti-terrorist branch officers are clearly involved and on the scene at some at least of those reported explosions, but there isn't any confirmation at the moment that this is a terrorist incident. But Scotland Yard sources are talking about a very firm coordination of these explosions, which would suggest, certainly at the start, that there may be some terrorist involvement.
Martin, stay with us. Just a bit more detail on what has been going on at Russell Square. We were speaking to one of our colleagues who was actually on the scene, Bob Mills, and he had assessed that he'd seen a bus with its roof blown off. Now, we've now heard from Scotland Yard that they are not confirming reports of an explosion on a bus in Russell Square. The police are now at the scene and are attempting to determine what has happened there. But just to reiterate, we were speaking to our colleague. He was describing a scene of real chaos at Russell Square. We know that's one of the tube stations which has been cited by the transport authorities as having been badly hit in this major incident affecting the capital. Our correspondent on the scene had seen what he thought was the roof of a bus which had been blown off. That has yet to be confirmed by the police. Martin, you haven't heard anything on that basis at all yet, presumably?
No, I haven't, but you know, there certainly is a great fear at Scotland Yard that this is a series of coordinated terror attacks. It's a fear. There's nothing to confirm that at the moment, but I imagine that confirmation or otherwise won't be long to establish. And if it is a series of terror attacks, then I guess it's what the authorities have been warning about ever since 9/11. But I think we should make it clear at the moment that there's nothing confirmed that this is a series of terrorist attacks. I know London Transport, I think, have spoken about power surges. Now, I'm not an expert whether you could have a series of power surges like this with such devastating effect. I don't know. You'll need to talk to a transport expert. But certainly, Scotland Yard, City of London Police are treating this as a major incident, and they have officers going in all directions to at least 5 tube stations where there are reports of explosions.
Yes, as we're talking to you, Martin, stay with us. We're witnessing some fairly distressing scenes outside Aldgate tube station. People being brought out of there on stretchers by the emergency services as we're talking to you. Clearly, though, the police in London must have primed the network for utter concentration after 9/11. I mean, this is possibly one of the most vulnerable areas of London and the whole of the way the city operates in terms of those who would wish to do people living in the capital harm.
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
So I'm just asking you perhaps to talk us through about the priority the London Underground must be for the police in keeping vigilance against terrorist attacks.
Yes, I mean, it was always felt, certainly for the last 2 or 3 years, that the transport systems would be amongst the prime targets for any terrorist attack. And, of course, the vigilance that people are constantly warned about. I mean, there have been campaigns since 9/11, poster campaigns, radio broadcasts, constantly warning of the need to be careful and to look out for suspect packages. Anybody who travels on a train these days will be very familiar with the constant reminders, the broadcasts on platform tannoys that there is this need for vigilance. And, of course, officers, as far as they can, keep an eye on some of those stations that are deemed to be amongst the prime targets. And I think the list that we've got demonstrates that it's those that coincide with major rail terminals. Liverpool Street, we're talking about King's Cross, certainly today. They would have been considered amongst targets for terrorists.
OK, Martin, for the moment, thank you very much for that.
If you're just joining us, a major incident on the London Underground this morning. Power surges, according to British Transport Police, causing explosions at Aldgate, Edgware Road, King's Cross, Old Street and Russell Square. We're just hearing that the Prime Minister, Tony Blair, is being updated on the chaos and the injuries that those explosions have caused. He, of course, is at the G8 summit in Gleneagles at the moment. Let's have a word with the transport expert, Christian Woolmar, who's in our central London studio. Christian, any idea what could have caused this?
No, well, at the moment, I've managed to have a couple of garbled telephone calls from people inside London Underground, and they seem to think that it is to do with a power surge, and the explanation might be that there's a power surge at one power station and then it goes down the line to the next substation, and there are apparently substations at Liverpool Street and Edgware Road, which might explain this. On the other hand, you know, there are resistors. They're not supposed to have these power surges. You know, although the electricity is supplied from outside nowadays, not from inside as it used to be, they shouldn't have these power surges.
Christian, I'm sorry to interrupt you. This is the word from union officials I'm reading on the Press Association Wires. Union officials said their sources had told them there had been at least one explosive device on the Underground. As I was saying, one explosion happened at Edgware Road. Suggestions of 2 explosions at King's Cross and Aldgate as well. Now, I must stress that we have no independent confirmation of that. That's just coming from the Press Association. Also confirmation from the Press Association that a bus has been ripped apart in an explosion in central London. You'll remember, you might have heard our producer Bob Mills talking about the scenes there, the roof of the bus ripped off. Let's go back to what you're an expert on. I know you're not a terrorism expert. Let's talk about the safety procedures that are in place on the Underground. How could the power systems have been overridden in this way?
Well, I mean, I think that might give a different gloss on it in that an explosion might send a power surge down the line, which would cause an explosion kind of at another place. That is a possible explanation. And I mean, my political instincts would say that this is a terrorist attack, given that it's just too much of a coincidence that it's Gleneagles today. And of course, the idea would be that people are being less vigilant because all attention is in Scotland.
Have you any idea how worried staff have been on the Underground about the fact that they have been seen in many independent eyes as obviously a potential terrorist target?
Well, there is a constant concern about that. Let's make this clear. The system is unprotectable. You can't kind of begin to search people's bags as they go onto the system. You can't search people. You can't stop kind of people attacking the London Underground if that's what they want to do, because you'd basically stop it kind of operating. And that is constantly in the minds of those running it.
The drivers themselves, I mean, there's nothing much they can do in situations like this. I mean, what kind of evacuation procedures are in place for an incident like this?
There are very good evacuation procedures. If you remember, there was a fire at King's Cross in 1987 which killed 31 people, and after that the evacuation procedures were completely revised. They were very poor at the time, but you know, some of the time evacuation involves going out by train. If people are stuck on a platform, the best way of getting them out is not necessarily to go up the stairs and out, but actually is to catch the next train. So it is quite a difficult situation if all the trains are stopped, because then you have to evacuate not only the people on the platforms but also people in the trains upwards, and that is quite a difficult job. But there is now always sufficient staff on the stations to ensure that this can be done, and they're very practiced at it. I mean, if one thing the IRA taught us, it taught us how to deal with terrorist incidents in the 70s and 80s.
Christian, just more explosion reports coming in. I'll repeat the one from Russell Square. We've got an eyewitness being quoted on the Press Association, Belinda Seabrook, saying that she saw an explosion rip through a bus as it approached Russell Square. Half the double-decker bus was in the air, she's quoted as saying. As I was also saying to you a couple of minutes ago, union officials on the Underground reporting at least one explosive device. Sticking with your field of expertise, how could one explosion trigger explosions elsewhere on the line?
Well, it might be that it created a power surge that then kind of went down the line to the next substation. That's something that somebody in London Underground, who worked for London Underground, told me that is a possibility. But I'm only saying that as a possibility. There are resistors which kind of are supposed to prevent those sort of power surges, but conceivably, if you happen to put one of these device in the right place, it kind of went down the line. It must be said, though, that it's quite strange that they would attack the power system rather than attacking people themselves. That is a kind of a different strategy from what we've obviously seen in Madrid, where they just put devices on trains. So, this is obviously quite sophisticated, and getting on the track to place such a device is not easy. So again, one mustn't jump to conclusions here. I mean, you can't get on the track very easily without being noticed, and certainly that would send an alert straight away. If anybody is in one of those tunnels, they would certainly trigger off an alert.
I mean, that's the most alarming thing, isn't it? That if this is, I must stress, we don't know for certain at the moment, if this is a major terrorist attack, somebody's clearly done their homework.
Yes, but I mean, we do know that these are very sophisticated people. We saw that in Madrid, where they coordinated 4 or 5 bombs kind of all in one go. So certainly, it is quite possible to do that. But I would be surprised that they would go for somewhere that would be as difficult to get to as these substations kind of in the centre of the system, because you can't just wander on the platform there. Off the platform and onto the tracks, people would notice you.
Christian Woolmer, transport expert, thanks for your time so far. Please don't go too far, because when we have a clearer picture, it might be good to talk to you again.
Let's take you now to an eyewitness to what is happening at Russell Square. Several news agencies, including ourselves, as we had our producer on the scene, reporting an explosion on a double-decker bus at Tavistock Square, which is just by Russell Square Tube. Susie Woodward joins us on the line from there now. She lives in that area. Susie, thanks very much for joining us on Sky News. What can you see?
Well, I've had to shut the window because you can probably hear all the sirens. It's just gridlock. I live on the square overlooking the actual grassy area, and nobody's moving anywhere. There's buses trapped, and all the emergency service vehicles just can't move.
And in terms of the explosion itself, did you hear anything?
I did, and this is the weird thing. My daughter's 18 months, and she was sitting next to me on the little chair in the dining area, which overlooks the square, and there was this enormous bang. And I'm so used to living in central London that she just looked at me and we both went, "Oh, what was that?" And then it honestly, it took phone calls from all my relatives around the world to ring me and say, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" There's been explosions on the tube.
So this is news which is going right round the globe pretty swiftly, it would seem. What did you do next?
Well, actually, I'm just getting all ready together to go downstairs and go outside the tube, and maybe we can talk later and I can tell you from outside I'm 2 minutes away from the tube station, and I'll be able to check out what's going on there.
And in terms, just paint a picture for people who live outside London, don't know anything at all about Russell Square, how large it is, how busy it is at this time of day, what sort of disruption this would cause.
Well, I mean, this is such a central route. It's just in Bloomsbury, right near. It's inside the congestion zone. It's a major thoroughfare. It's a big roundabout that all the cars use to get to East London, to West London. It's always very free flowing, but it's busy every second of the day. And I mean, people are abandoning their cars. They don't know what's going on. They're trying to pull over to try and let. There's a police van that since we went on air has moved 2 feet. And now people just cannot get out of the way to let this police van through.
And no evidence, though, on the square itself of those who've been wounded. Presumably the emergency services have dealt with this pretty swiftly now.
Well, I can't see the tube station, but I don't know what's happening. I can't see ambulances. All I can see is police vans just trapped. And I don't know, people are not moving up and down. This police van is stuck in the middle of right underneath my window. He can't move. And yet there is room for people to pull over, and people just seem to be dumbstruck.
OK, Susan Woodward, thank you very much. Perhaps we'll get an opportunity to speak to you later. As we're just hearing from Susan there, we're just getting news from the PA news agency saying that police have received reports of multiple explosions in London, according to Scotland Yard, of course confirming what we've been witnessing in the last hour or so. But they've now confirmed they received reports of multiple explosions in London. That is according to Scotland Yard within the last few moments.
Obviously, we're going to stay with this story. Let's talk to Brian Cook. He's the chairman of the London Transport Users Group. Brian, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
This is rapidly turning into the stuff of every passenger's nightmare.
Yes, it is. And it does appear that there's now been an explosion on a bus in Russell Square, as you've just been reporting. And it is a great tragedy for London on following what was a very happy day for London.
Has this been of concern? I mean, from a personal perspective, my wife doesn't want to travel on the tube anymore. Have passengers been worried about the potential of a terrorist attack?
I think London passengers are actually quite resilient after all the difficulties they had some years ago with the IRA. But clearly it's always been in the back of their minds, and particularly after the terrible instances nearly 2 years ago in Madrid. And people do worry about this. Having said that, it's too early to entirely speculate. The Metronet were saying initially that there was a power surge on the underground, but of course one doesn't know what caused that power surge, as Christian Woolmer, I think, was saying to you a little earlier.
As Scotland Yard has been reporting multiple explosions, they're saying at the moment, which of course could be related to some kind of power surge, but clearly the suggestion is this is a major terrorist attack. Scotland Yard confirming an explosion now on a bus at Tavistock Place near Russell Square. That's apart from all the incidents on the underground. Is it a sad reality that public transport is almost impossible to defend against terrorists?
One can't 100% defend anything against terrorists, I don't believe, and public transport is particularly hard. But the transport companies, the police and the other services have made it as hard as possible, and they have, I know, managed to thwart a number of potential attacks in London over recent years. But, we can't say today as to what has caused this, but it's just a terrible day to London. What I would urge is that any of your viewers that have any intention of coming to London today to abandon it. It is quite clear that London is not a place to be today.
It's obviously turning into a human tragedy, and also the repercussions of this. You're talking about people staying away today, but people are going to be worried for some time to come now.
Clearly they are. But I think we should allow the police and the emergency services to find out exactly what has happened and to worry about it after we've heard the full reports, rather than worry about it on the basis of speculation.
No, I appreciate that. Just going back to what I was saying about defending the line, though, let me just read another snap coming to us from the Press Association. Union sources now saying they've received reports of explosions on 3 different buses in central London. Scotland Yard confirming that explosion near Russell Square on a bus. Union sources telling us they have reports of 3 explosions on separate buses across central London. The situation obviously escalating as we speak, sadly. Just going back to sort of the security measures that could be put in place. I mean, it is physically impossible to have metal detectors at tube stations, people getting on buses being frisked. It is simply impossible.
It is. There is no way that you could have 100% security in a place like London and allow people to get around. As I say, measures have been taken, some of them obvious, some of them covert. There's increasing amounts of closed-circuit television systems. It's almost impossible to get into the underground at night and things like that. But clearly these things can happen, and as you say, it would be totally impossible to make it 100% safe, unfortunately.
Was there a fall-off in passenger numbers and an increase in passenger worries in the wake of September the 11th?
Not particularly. There was a little bit of a fall-off initially on the tube, and there's been some movement from tube to buses, and in bus patronage over the last few years is significantly up. But that, we believe, is largely because of the increased efficiency and the increased number of buses rather than any fear of terrorism.
I appreciate, obviously, Brian, that you represent transport users. What about transport staff? I mean, have you had much contact with them and their worries?
Not particularly. We have obviously spoken to staff, and we're talking all the time to staff more at a senior level than a junior level in transport companies. And they actually say the morale amongst staff before today, obviously, there was no difficulties in that area, and it has not been of a major concern to transport companies.
What about emergency procedures for an incident like this? Are you sort of au fait with what kind of operation kicks in when something like this happens?
Yes, we are, and all the police forces in London, and there are three that are involved, the City Police, the Metropolitan Police and the British Transport Police, have very robust emergency plans that they discuss with us from time to time.
I mean, I understand that the Tube network is obliged every year to hold an emergency exercise, and it actually just happened last month.
Yes, it did. It had an emergency exercise at Bank last month, and about 9 months ago it had a similar exercise at Lambeth North. And they do undertake regular emergency evacuations in addition to those, and practice with the emergency services, including the fire brigade and the ambulance service.
Brian, we're just looking at the latest pictures to come into us from Aldgate, which has been the focus of today's terrible events, although obviously the police now confirming that there have been incidents in a number of separate locations. You were talking about the emergency procedure that kicks in when something like this happens, and we can see dozens of police officers, dozens of ambulances, fire crews, and obviously they'll be there for some time, and at the various other incidents that are continuing across London. Brian Cook from the London Transport Users Group, thanks for your time today, and perhaps we'll talk again later.
Joining us on the line now is Susan Faraday, who's joining us from the Russell Square area. Susan, thank you for your time. I believe you witnessed the bus explosion there. Tell us what you saw.
Basically, we was walking from King's Cross up past Euston, and I just heard a bang. I looked around, the whole top of the bus and the back of it just came off. There was debris everywhere, people just running. A lady that I was with, that I was asking directions from, someone fell on her. She nearly got trampled on. We managed to get up and go into a building, and we got rushed out of the building, and I don't know where I am now, but I'm somewhere in London, and we're just hearing that bombs have gone off at Russell Square, Aldgate, King's Cross, Liverpool, and this bus. So they stopped all traffic, all public service is just at a halt. So we're just trying to stand away from it all, basically.
And how quickly did the emergency services respond to that? Were you basically moved out of the way?
I got off the train at 9:30, and there was a scare there, and there was police and fire brigades everywhere. They've been so dead tight. They're helping us